I am a specialist in the history of Islamic philosophy. I was born in New York City and grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. Among other subjects, I studied ancient Greek in high school, and at Yale University, where I was an undergraduate, I started studying classical Arabic, as well as Islamic history and the religion of Islam. After working in Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia, I returned to academia. I served for 8 years as a faculty member at Harvard University. I took up my current position at McGill University as Associate Professor of Islamic Philosophy in 2004. I am currently directing an international team whose goal is to construct a database index of works of Islamic philosophy that were produced between the medieval and the modern periods. Our hope is that a more accurate and complete picture of Islamic civilization will emerge. My name is Robert Wisnovsky. I think that Arabic and Islamic science and philosophy are not given the credit that perhaps they deserve. Partly that's because of an attitude that has been inherited from Victorian scholars, which holds that philosophy and science were always very marginal activities in Islamic civilization. To the extent that they existed at all, they only existed during the classical period, and then they disappeared. According to the Western narrative, philosophy came to Europe, where it received a more welcome embrace. Of course, there have been studies since the 19th century of Islamic philosophers, such as Ibn Rushd from Andalusia, Ibn Sina from Iran. But again, those studies have rarely been integrated into the study of the history of philosophy. So I think it's extremely important to challenge these prejudices, not by shouting, not by arguing, but by presenting firm textual evidence that is absolutely incontrovertible. There's no argument against the fact that in the period of post-classical Islamic intellectual history, an enormous number of very sophisticated philosophical texts were produced. Since September 11th, A lot of the scholarly discourse in Islamic studies has seemed to revolve around the two opposing poles. And these two pictures tend to be the main options available to students in North American universities, either the Islam of the fundamentalists or the Islam of the peaceful Sufis. There is an enormous body of activity, enormous body of texts that's being left out, and that, of course, is the rational sciences, the study of logic, the study of astronomy, the study of mathematics, the study of geometry, the study of music theory, the study of philosophy of language, the study of theories of signification. The Rational Sciences in Islam project is an ambitious international undertaking which involves the indexing of a large number of works of Islamic philosophy and science that were produced throughout the centuries. The project requires that we first start by collecting or constructing an inventory of what exists. We purchase images of the best available manuscripts in order to create tables of contents of those really important works. Now, the particular field that I'm focusing on is the post-classical period, that is to say, the period after Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina. This is a period which has been largely ignored by scholars in the West. So now we're entering the Islamic Studies Library, which is currently undergoing some renovations. And here we are coming to the octagon room, where my colleagues and I will look at a text.
الدراسات حتى الآن تدعي أن الفلسفة بشكل خاص ماتت بعد القرن الثالث عشر في حضارات إسلامية. نحن نحاول أن نثبت أن العلم بشكل عام، الفلسفة، المنطق بشكل خاص استمر حتى القرن التاسع عشر في حضارة الإسلامية بشكل عام.
Arabic or Islamic world was the top of the scientific heritage, so it's very interesting word for history of science and history of philosophy.
Our project is more than just a catalog. We want to capture the information. We want to capture information, for example, you'll see there's marginal information. We don't want to lose, because these are clues to what people have made comments. This is a database that is beyond all of us here. We want it to live into the future for future generations of scholars.
Why would it be important for a Canadian or someone from North America or Europe to study the civilization? Because in a way they're studying their own civilization at the same time. They're studying their own heritage. Very much of modern science, for example, has its roots in the Islamic world. And because of that, if you want to understand yourself, part of understanding yourself, if you're a European or North American, whatever, is understanding Islam.
It's very hard to substitute a real manuscript by an image, although a good image can tell quite a lot.
The goal is to increase the ability of scholars, not just in North America and in Europe, but of course throughout the Arab world, throughout the Islamic world, who are interested in studying Islamic philosophy, to gain access to this enormous mountain of philosophical material. Hello, Rashid.
How are you, Mr. Rob?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Reza. Hello, Professor Sharif. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
Fine, thanks.
We are proud to announce that is the great bridge between humanities as sciences and between engineering. Building this database is a very great contribution for all the world, not only the Arabic world.
The same word can have different forms, and it's very, very difficult to segment this word into the letters. We will try to spot this word within that document. So what is happening, the application is trying to find the similar shapes to the shape that we are looking for.
An old text erased and overwritten by another new text. The question is how we can read the erased one. Thanks to the new technology of the camera, combined with some image processing technique, we can read what it was erased before. In the visible range of light, mostly all the information appear on the image. But if we want to detect only the ink of the text and ignore the other added degradation, we can use another filter, which is near infrared. So this filter can get another image of the same document where the degradation disappears, and we can go through the document and get the behind information.
This is forensic studies, تحقيق, تنقيح المخطوطات. What happened in that century? Who added? Who doesn't add? Annotation. All the layering and annotation. We can, as Rashid have shown, we can separate the different layers, and we give the scholar another tool to dig into the truth.
How make these researchers from Canada, from Arabic country, and from all over the world work together? We develop in our laboratory a software that can allow the researchers to share the document and to communicate in a remote manner. So they can see each other, they can talk, and they can share documents.
In some way, we're honoring all of that unbelievable effort that took place 600 years ago, 700 years ago, by people who were completely committed to this work.
You can be amazed that the Western part are more active than the Arab world.
My project received about $1.5 million of support from the Canada Foundation for Innovation. They provide 40% of the funding. The government of Quebec also provides matching funds, 40%, and then McGill University provides the remaining 20%. In addition, we've received some support from the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin in the form of database design and in backup storage of some of our images. I was born in New York City in 1964. I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, which is both a university town, but also a commuter community. So many people take the train or take the bus or drive into New York City to their jobs. And that's what my father did. He commuted every day on the train to New York City, where he worked on the board of editors of the magazine Scientific American. I had always, in some sense, wanted to explore the world beyond Princeton. I always felt a desire to travel and to explore other parts of the world. Partly as a result of that desire, I signed up for an Arabic class in the beginning of my second year at Yale, and realized that this was the most fantastic, amazing, complicated, difficult, challenging, but beautiful language that I'd ever come across. And that I had better start studying Islamic history and religion of Islam as well. So I signed up for courses in those topics as well. And the rest, as they say, is history. The first time I visited the Middle East was as a student of Arabic, and I went to study in Alexandria in Egypt at the University of Alexandria in the Faculty of Arts, Kulliyat al-Adab. And there was a program for students from British universities. I was studying at Oxford University at the time, to go and spend a year in Alexandria to improve their Arabic. So I was determined to take advantage of the opportunity that this center in Alexandria provided. And of course, I was happy to have done it, not only because I had the opportunity of living in Alexandria, which is a beautiful city with extremely nice people, and also had the option of learning Arabic better, but also because that's where I met my wife, who was also studying Arabic at the same center. So it was a very happy trip in many ways. Actually, just after my wife and I were married, we spent a couple of months teaching English at a refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. We were volunteers, and we were involved in an organization, an English organization called UNIPAL, which sends university students to Palestine in order to volunteer in various ways. And the volunteering that we did was teaching English. So we lived and worked in Rafah for 2 months, and it's of course a shock. I mean, to anyone, to see the poverty and the terrible conditions in which the Palestinian people in Gaza are living. I think one of the things that is hard to convey to a Western audience who is so used to the idea of mobility is how trapped people are. When we were working in Rafah, of course this is right on the border with Egypt, this fence, enormous fence, was dividing Egyptian Rafah from Gazan Rafah. And the families who had been separated by chance when the border was drawn after Camp David had to come and shout to each other across this fence. Excuse me, I'm getting emotional. So even though, of course, the experience in Gaza had no direct impact on me as a scholar of Islamic philosophy, it did make me realize that it was important that in whichever way I could, as a scholar of Islamic philosophy, I tried to make my work in some indirect way help to create greater understanding between the Arab world and those of us in North America, between the Muslim world more generally and the West, and that this situation in Gaza is just completely untenable. It can't go on. It simply can't go on. I think that traveling to the Middle East has helped me in many ways. It made me appreciate that there were many very active and brilliant scholars working in Middle Eastern university environments. I have to say, often struggling with funding issues that scholars and professors in North America cannot even imagine. I mean, the salaries, the funding for research, the ability to go on sabbatical, the funding for graduate students, and so on and so forth. It's a much more challenging academic environment at many universities in the Middle East than it is in North America. But nevertheless, these professors are producing important works of scholarship. And my travel in the Middle East has made me realize that I must not operate in isolation in North America. I have tried not to isolate myself within my research and speak, again, only to colleagues who are also interested in Islamic philosophy. But my goal has also been to reach out to the undergraduates at institutions like Harvard and now at McGill, who are going to be leading important careers, who are going to be decision makers. And if they have been affected, if they have been influenced by one lecture that I gave, one thing that I said in a lecture that makes them hesitate in their future careers before either saying something prejudiced about Islamic civilization or Islamic culture or acting on that prejudice, then I will have achieved something. I think that is where, in some sense, academia can affect politics.